Call the meeting to order, call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Milani?
Here.
Trustee Campus?
Here.
Trustee Rorden?
Here.
Trustee Ratajewski? Here. Mayor Pekow?
Here.
Meeting started at 6:02 PM. Rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes.
First item is approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of August 19th, 2024.
Second. Call the roll.
Call the roll. Trustee Healy? Aye. Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Milani?
Aye.
Trustee Campus?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Ratajewski? Mayor Pekow?
Aye.
Do we have any citizens and visitors for public comment?
So for agenda-specific items, is there anyone here to speak? No one has signed in. Okay, can move on to the next one.
Okay, application fees and fees per square foot.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Campus.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the staff recommended action as presented in the attached memo regarding case number 2024-0294 and direct staff to return on Monday, October 7th, 2024 with ordinance amendments to the applicable sections of the village code and the land development code to establish regulations for application fees and fees per square foot.
Second.
Can you guys give us a presentation on this?
Yes. So we were here in July covering like the concept, and so now we return with a more specific detail of recommendations to be included in a upcoming ordinance on October 7th. So the goal of the proposed fee structures to fully cover the village costs such as application intake, plan review, permit issuance, inspections, et cetera, when supporting improvements to residential properties. And the overall goal with the new fee structure is to keep the proposed total fee, both the impact and building fees, similar to the existing fees while enhancing customer service through better predictability. The application fee that is before you tonight would support staff costs associated with the commencement of processing a permit that might not ever be issued. This fee per square foot is for single-family residential, both detached and attached, that would support a reduced administrative processing cost and a more straightforward understanding of the fee amounts for the prospective homeowner and contractor. We do anticipate that these fees would go into effect on January 27th, which is the day that we will go live with our new permitting and licensing software. So the application fees, the intent is to collect most or all of the permit fee upfront, and for permits with the total fee that are greater than the application fee, it would be recommended that the balance would be paid at the time of the permit issuance. Our current fee is $75 for many of the simple permits, including our famous roof permits. And so that was established back in November of 2017. So using the consumer price index calculator, the value today would be $95. So therefore, the staff recommends a $95 application fee. And we'd also recommend the consumer price index adjustment every January 1st. However, that gets, every year. So in all likelihood, increase each year. And then for fees per square foot, we looked at We did some analysis that also overlaps with our next case for tonight's meeting, but we looked at the proposed impact fees, part of the later case, proposed building permit fees, and then also existing impact fees and existing building permit fees, which is also in the chart that you see up there, but I'll go in more detail on that later. So the small sample of homes analyzed illustrates a hypothetical scenario in which the proposed building permit fees are within a small range of the existing building fees paid by the applicant at the time of building permit issuance. A concern was expressed at the Plan Commission regarding the potential of future development going to neighboring communities due to the increase in impact fees, hence why we're discussing this at the Committee of the Whole, because it was not a unanimous support of the pending impact fees. However, our impact fee ordinance hasn't been completely rewritten since 1994. So as an example, one of the Waterford Point permits, the $9,925 Waterford Point impact fee in 1994 would be $20,000 in 2024, which is less than the $17,810 proposed impact fees in the next case. So similar to the application fees, it's recommended that the CPI be, or Consumer Price Index, be automatically applied to the fees on January 1st of each year to include adjustments for inflation. So staff is recommending a price per square foot for the first 2,000 square feet of a home at $1.70 per square foot. Any additional square feet above the 2,000 would be 50 cents per square foot for each additional square foot above that 2,000. We would recommend that the Committee of the Whole would recommend to the Village Board to move forward with an ordinance on October 7th, next month.
Just a couple of clarifications. So on the residential fee, we'd be flipping it to, rather than a whole bunch calculating the number of fixtures for plumbing and the number of this for electrical, we wanted to get it down to a simple price per square foot so there wouldn't be any risk for the developer. They know exactly what the price is going to be. The square foot is not living space. It's actually the building area. It's everything we'd be reviewing. So it would include garages, it would include basements, because that's things that we would be reviewing as part of the review. But it's a big time saver for us to not have to do that. And it's also, we don't have to constantly check the information that the applicant is giving us to make sure everything is correct. And just, give some certainty and reduce the amount of risk for the developers.
So a couple of things. One is, in the future, when you do these, you have to put the spreadsheets and the presentation on the iPad and in Legistar, because I can't read any of this. It's way too small. Secondly, the Excel sheets you sent us had mostly impact fee stuff, didn't really have, and this is not impact fees, this is permit fees.
Correct.
The reason is because one of the charges that we had was to try to keep the total cost for the developer approximate. So it was hard for us to look at one without the other. So there's some modifications going on with the way the impact fees were collected. So in order to meet the request that we try to keep some parity, that's the reason why we're presenting them together here.
Right, but the parity, hard to see parity when it's going from 9 to 17. We talked about going to price per square foot, and it was going to be about the same, and that's what we saw before, is that they're about the same. Now we're seeing an almost 50% increase. The stuff that I saw, which was the first time I saw it, I have tons and tons of questions, and I don't have any of that information in my laptop or on the screen. I don't know what the rest of the board, how the rest of the board feels about that.
We apologize if it wasn't there. It was our understanding that the chart was included in the staff report.
Yeah, it's not. I've got legislation text and I've got 2 code amendment changes. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, there's a thing on the back.
Yeah, but all the details behind it aren't there. So It just gives me the exact amount, the amounts, that's what's on, yeah. So thank you for putting that on there, but still, it doesn't have all the details behind it. And I'm going on a, I mean, we want to have detached homes, and we're going from, you know, we're going up from 14,000 to 21,000. You know, for example, on that, on detached, we're going from 11 to 19,000. You know, the attached, the two-bedroom attached it's not a huge change, but the other stuff, there's a huge change. And so what's driving those changes? You know, as I recall, one of the big drivers of the change was the water connection fee. But again, this says residential property fees. Is this impact fees or is this a permit? Or is it both?
The first number is the impact fee, and that's where it looks like a lot of the changes are because of the changes in the way the legislation.
Right.
A lot of it is because of the land value has gone up so much. So for land donations, because the price of per acre has gone up so much, that's is one of the reasons why there is a large adjustment. The second row on each one is the building permit fee differences or the amounts. So the building permit fees, which is this case, are mostly negative with a slight increase for the middle column.
And we have Attorney Michael Roth here. He's and the Mike, if you could just maybe talk about, is this, there's two things, and I think we talked about that. First one was the per acre fee, and that was done through an appraisal, and when it was done the last time, and how this kind of compares to other.
That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is that there was a very detailed spreadsheet with all the different line items, and none of that is here, so I can't discuss it. So I would recommend that we table this discussion until we can get that information, because I'm not going to sit here and have hypothetical conversations on stuff I don't have in front of me. Is there anybody else that has any comments to make?
Yep, Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Reardon.
You mentioned a little bit about other towns, and then I think I don't know if you skipped over it or just we don't have that information, but I'd like that to be included as well. And I don't mean to set up a straw man argument that I want to then knock it down, that it's okay that ours are higher, because I think it's more desirable, and nothing against any of the towns around us, but I do want to see what those are in here so that we can have some comparison. And if ours are a little bit higher, well, it's a desirable place for a developer to put a project. So, but I think we need to know that before we analyze this a little more.
And remember, our goal here is to get more detached family housing, and what I'm looking here does not achieve that goal. We want to do it. We want to do it fairly as well. So I think that's the question. So I think comparing it to outside agencies as well. But we need to have those details so we can have a detailed discussion about it. This doesn't have the information we need to do that, in my opinion. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I had the same concern, just wanting to get into more of the details. Trustee Reardon already asked one of my other questions. I think the other thing would be just how we go about, and this is for my own knowledge, how do we go about determining square footage for a duplex versus a detached, right? So if you have a duplex that has two 2,500 square foot units, does that count as a 5,000 square foot building, or does it count as 2 units under this?
It would be 2 units.
2 units.
So
Each unit gets its own permit.
Each unit gets its own permit, yeah. And we will permit them together usually because they're going to have a single foundation, but the fees will be assessed per unit. So I just processed a couple duplexes myself, and one was 16,000, the second one was a little 16,000, give or take. So the total was approximately 32 for that building. And there isn't necessarily a difference between an attached or detached, just more or less. It's all regardless of what type of single family it is, it's all based off the same ratio per square foot, price per square foot. Permit fee per square foot.
And then,
Trustee Katsinas.
I'm sorry. Just a quick question. When you said square footage, it's not the square footage like an assessor would say.
It's not the livable, it's not the living area, it's the building area. So anything that we would be reviewing under permit. So it would include garages, accessory structures, basements, because we have all stuff down there. We have to inspect all those places. We have to, yeah.
And when is the last time there's been any increase in a building permit? How long is our
Probably
price?
2017 was the last, at least for some of the specific ones that I looked at, but I think it's a little bit over time, but 2017.
Okay, Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
for my own, I tried to read it and understand, but maybe just clarify that before or currently, you have separate fees for, like you said, electrical and all these other
Plumbing,
things.
mechanical, right?
All that stuff. Is that on top of the current $75 fee or whatever you said? I mean, are those all added up?
The $75 or $95 proposed fee is just for the flat, their application fees. For the ones that are already $75, that would end up being the whole fee. They would just pay it in the front rather than the end. On other ones, if there's any differences, we would then collect it at the end.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to get at again is that, as the mayor was pointing out, we don't know exactly, but these seem to jump, significantly, at least in this one chart. But if really that number includes now all those other fees that a developer.
These are for new homes. The $75 for like a roof, a replacement roof
Right.
permit, AC or something like that. So I don't really have a problem with going from 75 to 95, but
Right, but if I'm trying to understand, maybe I'm missing something, but the chart you have on the back of page 3 here, these prices that are predicted to go up, are they now one fee? Whereas before, you were collecting a bunch of different ones for different things, and maybe the increase isn't as much, is what I'm trying to get
So
at.
the $1.70 plus 50 cents after a certain amount would replace all of the building permit fees. What's jumping is the impact fees, and a lot of that is because, and we'll get into this in the next one, but is because of the land cost has gone up so much since 1994.
yes.
That's like, 30 years of.
We need to explain that then, I think, a little better, and so that, this comes out looking like we're raising, developers' cost by 50%, and that doesn't sound like that's actually what we're doing.
And as you look at this, the building permit fees are roughly the same. They're not a whole lot of difference. The big difference, in fact, they go down in some of these cases, but the impact fees are a killer. And, the impact fees obviously are not just us. The impact fees are all the others as well. So I think we want to see what was the impact fee before. What's the impact, between the school districts and the fire district and the village? What were the impact fees? So do the same, take that same analysis you've done there and break impact fees into the different impact fee, the different taxing bodies.
Recipients, yeah.
Underneath, and then show it existing versus proposed. The one thing I will tell you is that if you look at the spreadsheets that are there, you have a village-wide population. It's not quite correct either, so it's a couple thousand shy. So that's going to have an impact on the numbers here, as well as if it's an impact fee for the
Seen our tying fees to CPI. I think there's a certain amount of sense to that, but I think from a procedural standpoint, is there anything else in the village that we've ever tied to CPI or have ever automatically increased without a board vote?
I do know recently we did something, and I can't remember what it was. We'll have to look into it, but I just don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't know that I love the precedent of that. I mean, we review everything in terms of fees, all the way down to, fees for sportsplex, right? So I don't think we would necessarily want to put an automatic escalator in here for this.
And that's definitely a policy decision. That's what.
Right. So, specifically, if you look at the detached homes, I mean, the impact fees are going up, $8,000, $9,000 for all the detached homes. So that's a big deal relative to the attached homes. Well, actually, the 3-bedroom attached goes up a lot as well. So I think we got to look at that and how those impact fees are. And I know we're collecting them for other districts, but how much of that is for us? And the water connection sewer rate fee, it says without that, does that mean that the existing fees do not have the water connection fee in it, but the new ones do?
That's a flat fee that's assessed per unit for that specific connection.
And that's just our cost, right?
Microphone.
I don't know exactly how that cost is arrived, but that's a flat fee that's assigned per unit for the connection.
But that should be just our cost for connecting, right?
Yeah, that's generally what it is. It's part of our overall water and sewer rate structure.
Right.
And that is not part of this.
Right. But that's just hey, this is how much it costs. This is how much it costs to connect you to our system. That to me is the builder cost. It's not something that, and that's a pass-through, so I have no problems with that.
Yeah,
No, right. Okay. Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to table.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll. Campos and Malani.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon. Aye. Trustee Rojewski. Aye. Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Next item is the revision and update of the development and subdivision exactions, dedication of land fees in lieu of dedication.
Mr. Mayor?
Do we even need to motion this, Dennis? Since it's connected to this previous one, do we even need to motion it?
You should, yeah.
Okay. Trustee Katsinas.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the Plan Commission recommended action regarding case number 2023/0915 as presented.
Trustee Campos, second.
So I would entertain a motion to table this as well, since it's connected to the previous one.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Rojewski.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is a discussion of the Sears building redevelopment.
So, so I wanted to just put on here, I have a bunch of questions about the Sears property. So Steve, if you could just break down for the board a little bit, what are the site challenges that we have there?
So for this particular site, the building's been sitting there vacant for quite a long time. It's very large. The village has been sitting there a long time. It's very large and difficult to redevelop on its own. It was auctioned off and we got a buyer. And we are also, as the stormwater control rules have changed over time, we've kind of bumped up against the limit on what we can do for redevelopment around the ring road, so that any new development would require some marginal increase in stormwater control. We were hoping that this site, because of where it's located, is exactly in line with where the stormwater control is, which right now is in the pond, south of 66 Orland Square, which is the southeast corner of the site. So if we were going to expand any stormwater control, that's the location that it would need to happen. So for the long-term health of the mall and that watershed, which does include some of the residential around it, to my understanding, this site is kind of critical to make sure that we solve some other development challenges with continuing to monetize the real estate around the mall.
Okay. And when did these guys purchase it again?
I think it was last December of 2022, so
Okay.
we're getting close to 2 years now.
And from what we can tell, what have they done or developed nationwide? I know we've had a tough time finding anything that they've actually done that looks anything like, our space.
Yeah, so the core business is more of an industrial kind of, it's almost like a Cube Smart or a self-storage, but more for industrial. There was larger flex spaces for that kind of thing. Initially, they asked us about doing that here. We said, no, that's not going to work here. But beyond that, we've gotten some ideas from them on different ways they would develop.
Yeah, that was my next question is what kind of stuff have they brought to us? Obviously, the industrial you should just talk about. What else have they brought to us?
They've brought to us a series of concepts to float off of us about smaller retail, like for startups. They've brought us some entertainment type uses. They have brought us some co-working type spaces, which would include some community components. We've never gotten a formal submittal at this point. They've recently also asked us a question about a more kind of media-based flex space. But again, I haven't gotten that one on paper yet. It was just a question. So they haven't given us an actual development petition. They've brought us a lot of ideas. for reusing some of the outside and different parts of the inside at different times.
And just for the board's purposes, have we had other interested parties?
We have had other interested parties, which I've communicated to the owner.
Okay. And some of those would be things that we think would be a good fit there, that at least that we generally,
They would be in line with the uses that are similar to that area, yeah.
okay. And what's just so the board knows, what's the approval process of this? And the public knows.
Yeah, so for a large tenant space in this zone, a special use permit is required because of its size and scale. And in those kinds of developments, similar to what happened with Pete's, for instance, or with Steinhoffels, we just want to make sure that wherever the changes aren't having any unintended negative impacts, or if there was some marginal increases or changes that need to be made for site improvements. When we redid the south end of the mall with the new tenant, that's not the south end, it's the west end of the mall with the new tenant. We had some site improvements that were with that redevelopment, and we would probably be requesting the same types of improvements for this one when it redevelops.
And anything of this size requires a special use from the board, right?
We would need a special use, yes, because of its size.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess if I can just correct me if I'm wrong in my summary here, but if I could summarize, basically, the company involved, CubeWorks, they have no history of a project like this that we know about.
Correct.
We definitely have site challenges and some stormwater needs in that space.
Yes.
The mall is that we know, it's a top 1% traffic mall, top 10% sales per square foot. It's one that we hear regularly is going to be one of those, for sure, one of the surviving malls in the area. So it's going to be the regional mall for the southwest side. That site's been vacant for about 6 years. Obviously, Seritage had a plan there. Tenant with AMC. AMC pulled out with COVID, which basically killed that deal, as well as obviously Seritage lost their portfolio through COVID as well. So COVID's a problem. The mall is, it's the linchpin to our retail sector and probably to our economy. About 10% of our taxes directly and 40% indirectly, and all the traffic it brings. It's certainly in the village's strategic interest to ensure that it's developed in the best way possible for the long term, which includes making sure that our long-term storm water is managed, that there's a long-term occupancy of the space and not something short-term, and that whatever occupies that space is complementary to the mall and doesn't detract from it, doesn't detract from the area. So personally, and I doubt the board feels much differently, but if you do, please feel free. But given that they have a pretty undocumented history of this type of work, they've given us a lot of uncertain plans. This site's pretty important. Me as a mayor, and I'm sure you as a board, we're going to heavily scrutinize and demand really thorough plans from CubeWorks, as well as that's going to have to include committed users. There's none of this speculation stuff to rebuild it and then we're going to fill it, because I'm not convinced with anything I've seen that that's actually going to happen. And those users and those plans have to meet the long-term village's goals, because if they don't, the board's not going to be, looking to, we're not going to detract from the rest of the village to approve this site. So I don't know if anyone on the board has anything else to add to that. So, okay, well, it's a good discussion for us, for the board, for the public to see what we're doing with it. We are aware of it. We are working on it. There's the current owner, you've kind of heard what the situation is. So,
Mr. Mayor, they're not actively marketing it though, right, to sell it?
They're not actively marketing it at all. So, and to our knowledge, they haven't acted on anybody that we've given to them. So, a little bit concerning because it's been sitting for a while. We're not seeing anything, not seeing any plans.
And I mean either way. I mean in terms of like partnering with the developer that we've seen or selling it.
And there's activity of people interested. So that's the frustrating part. So that's one of the reasons to have this discussion tonight, so that staff understands what our position is, so they can obviously relay that, to the CubeWorks. Okay. Next.
Any citizens or visitors with public comment on non-agenda items?
So is there anybody else here to speak to the committee of the whole? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy. Aye. Trustee Malani. Aye. Trustee Campos.
Aye.
Trustee Radoszewski. Mayor Pico.
Aye. We're adjourned. See you in a half an hour.